So, you want to be a pro musician, and that means most definitely, at multiple points in your career, you're going to have to learn a whole bunch of material, a whole bunch of music. You're going to have to internalize it, memorize it, and then be able to play it back as though you wrote it, confidently. You know, whether it's for an audition, a big gig coming up, a small gig coming up, or maybe it's an entire, world tour. And many times you're going to have to do it kind of on an expedited, quick basis. Maybe you've got 12 hours to learn all the material for a gig that you get last minute. Or you just find out about an audition, you don't want to miss out on it. So you've got to learn that material and get it down. So in this video I'm going to explore some of my strategies for learning music. I'll just come right out and confess, I'm a pretty poor reader. I've always been a kind of by-ear player. I've always learned things note for note by ear. Even in the recording studio, if I go in and there's an artist in there and I've never heard a song before and they want to cut a tune, if there's any way I can sort of, poke through the chart and read it, but internalize the structure of a song really quickly and memorize it so that I don't have to look at the chart when we're actually cutting a take, I will do that. And I realize that's probably more of a reflection of what a poor reader I am, more on whether or not it's good to read charts. But it's just, in my opinion, for me personally, what works is internalizing the music and memorizing it, and that way I can kind of, not be looking at a chart and reading, but I can be putting my all into the performance, whether it's, in a recording studio setting or live. So that's just me. I really like to learn things, and I like to learn things note for note, off records. I've always kind of been that way. Since the 80s, growing up in Canada, there was a big cover band scene and tribute band scene there. And these bands would roll through town that I would go out and see, and they could play, the songs of the day by, Van Halen or Black Sabbath or Rush. Really complex music, and these bands would nail this stuff. And so that was just a given to me, that I had to be able to do that or I wasn't nothing. I had to be able to learn music, internalize it, and be able to perform it really, really well. So I kind of grew up with that in mind. Now, when the 90s rolled around, something happened. It was like the cover band thing kind of went by the wayside, and also guitar solos went out of vogue. So learning things note for note, it wasn't such a thing anymore. It was like with the 90s bands, it seemed more important to be creative and write songs of your own, come up with your own parts and that sort of thing. So that's a different skill set I feel like players that grew up in the 90s maybe developed. But growing up in the 80s and having to learn things note for note, because that was kind of the thing du jour, I think that really helped me out later on in my career. Once it got into the late 90s, the 2000s, and I started getting tours and things like that, and sessions, being able to learn material quickly, those skills I'd developed, my ear that I'd developed as a kid, that came in really handy in my career, both doing sessions and as a sideman. So a key really important thing is to listen to the music a lot and internalize it. It's possible that you're learning songs for a cover gig and maybe you've heard these songs throughout your life and so you're familiar with them anyway. Or maybe you've got a gig with a great big artist that's got songs, that you've been hearing your whole life anyway. That'd be a great thing. So congratulations if that's the case. But if not, if you're learning songs that you're not familiar with, listen to that material as much as you possibly can, like you would your favorite songs. So you're internalizing it, and you just kind of are familiar with the song titles. You can put the song titles to the music, and you're just internalizing it by listening quite a bit. So if you can put it on a playlist on your phone, maybe listen to it while you're driving in your car or while you're out, taking a walk or something on headphones, just try and listen as much as you possibly can. And that's a thing that can happen even before you start learning the songs, if possible. When you're on your way to an audition or a gig as well, don't cloud your brain with a whole bunch of other information. Try and listen to the music that you're about to be playing. If it's possible to not even talk on the phone or to, get too much information coming in other than that music that you're about to perform, I find that that's beneficial. So early on, some of the things that I would do, I would sit there and listen, be it with my turntable or a cassette deck and headphones, or sometimes a 4-track recorder. I would listen to parts over and over and over and over again. And an interesting thing would happen. One thing that I always did was I never listened to too much of the music at once. So I wouldn't let 4 or 5 chords go by or, 8 bars or anything like that. Generally speaking, I would play just a second or two of music and listen to the chord progression or the riff that I was trying to tackle. So small chunks of music. Sometimes I can remember working for 45 minutes or an hour on a bar or two of some fast passage or lick that I was trying to learn by Eddie Van Halen or Jimmy Page. Now, if things were too fast for me and I couldn't seem to figure out what notes were being played, one thing I would do is utilize the 4-track recorder I had. I had a little Porta Studio from Tascam. It had 2 speed settings in it. It was 3 1/4 and 1 7/8 or something like that. So the 1 7/8 speed was exactly half speed of the higher speed setting. What I would do is take another cassette deck, I'd play, or my turntable, and I'd play the music into the 4-track, and I'd record it at the fast speed setting onto a cassette in the 4-track. Then when I played back that cassette at the half-speed setting, the audio would be pitched down 1 octave, but it would be in pitch. So I could, internalize and learn fast solos and things like that by Steve Vai or Eddie Van Halen or Joe Satriani. And I would sit there and listen to that slowed down, octave down audio, just a bar or 2 at a time, and really try and nail every single little nuance. And an interesting thing happens when you do that, when you just try and internalize small chunks of music and really nail it. The more and more that you listen to the music over and over again, it starts sounding slower somehow. I mean, something happens with the brain. I don't quite know how to describe it, but maybe some of you out there have experienced this, where all of a sudden you start to hear, even in a fast phrase, the individual notes and articulations really clearly. But if I listen to too much of the music at once, that sort of phenomenon where I could all of a sudden hear the individual pitches and articulations, that would go out the window. So it's all about finding what sort of small chunks of music work for you. How big can that little piece of music be that you can listen and hear the individual pitches? So that's number 1. Don't try and tackle too much at once if you're trying to learn something by ear. Just listen to small, short phrases, and once you've got it nailed and it really sounds like it when you're playing along with the record, then you can move on. Now, of course, in this day and age, this is extremely easy to do using things like phrase trainers. Now at this juncture, I'll just say I really dislike using iTunes for learning material. There's something about that bar at the top and trying to move it around and play just the section of the song I want, and sometimes I hit the wrong thing and it goes to the mini player, and So I do use iTunes at the end when I'm trying to play through a whole set of music. I'll make a playlist in iTunes and put all the songs in there that I'm trying to get down and that I need to practice. But when I'm actually learning the material, this is where phrase trainers come in really handy. Transcribe's a program that I use all the time. It's really brilliant for learning music. You can slow things down to half speed or even slower, any speed you want, and it doesn't change the pitch. So if I'm trying to nail a certain solo, I can slow things down to 70% or 50% or even 35%, and it keeps the audio pretty good. It's also really, really easy in Transcribe to loop sections of music, okay? So you can just focus in on that 1 or 2 bar segment or even just a couple notes that you're trying to figure out. Here's Transcribe. This is just a quick down and dirty demo of this. I wanted you to see how it works and how I use it and some of the things I like so much about it. Okay, so I've got a track loaded up here. It's Hang 'Em High by Van Halen. Hit spacebar and it starts to play. You can see the audio file. This is just an MP3 I loaded in here. Now this is at 100% speed. If I slow it down to 70% speed, how about 50%? Okay, so you can hear it keeps the pitch the same of the audio and just makes it so that you can really hone in on stuff. So what I'm gonna do now is find a lead guitar part and I'm gonna loop it, and then I'm gonna show you what that sounds like slowed down. Okay, so there's the solo. So I can easily just color this in using the mouse and loop that much. So when you're trying to learn a lick or something, it's really great because it'll just loop right there at that set loop point. You can also save this as kind of a preset or something. So if you want to come back to it later and just jam over and over on that one lick, you can loop that one part of the song. You don't have to find where it was again. You can just store it right in the Transcribe software itself. So that's really cool. Check out what this sounds like when I slow it way down, 50%. So let's find a fast lick here. Okay, so I'm going to loop that section now. I'm going to slow it down to 50%. Okay, so that's cool, but there's Dave's vocal in there, so it's a little bit hard to hear around that maybe. So what I can do is just turn on this karaoke mode, and it's going to take out the center channel and only leave the stuff that's out on the sides. It's perfect for Van Halen stuff because the guitar is generally panned left, especially on those early records. So I'll hit the karaoke button. Let's see what it sounds like. Once again at 100%. 50. So it makes it so much easier. I mean, I can slow it down, I can remove the center channel so I can get the vocal mostly out and just really hone in on the guitar part. There's also an EQ, so if I want to remove all the bass and only leave the mid frequencies so I can really hone in on stuff, I can just pull down all the low end here, say everything below 180 hertz, and we'll see what that sounds like. Kind of amazing. I mean, I'm left with almost nothing but just that sort of isolated mid-rangey guitar tone, and at 50%, I mean, let's take it down to 35%. You know, I can just hone right in on that lick, and all of a sudden, you know, what might have been hard to hear and really fast and, you know, just a difficult thing to learn becomes much easier using this software. So I just really dig Transcribe, and once again, this is from a company called Seventh String. You can just actually change the pitch of the recording. So I'll show you. So I'm just taking it down in half steps there. So you can go 12 down and 12 up. And the other thing you can do is fine tune the track in sense. So in between steps, you can actually tune the track. So let's say somebody, you know, maybe recorded a song and their guitar wasn't tuned to a tuner. They just kind of tuned it to itself. And so the song is out of tune, you know, with any conventional tuner or whatever. Well, you can actually just tune the track to your own guitar then. And that helps save time when you're learning stuff. So once again, I use Transcribe software from Seventh String. I think it's a great one. I don't have anything to do with the company. I paid 49 bucks like everybody else for the software, and I just think it works great. There's other phrase trainers out there you can check out. I think there's one called Riff Master Pro. There's Riff Station, I think, is another one. And then there's actually portable ones. Boss has some portable phrase trainer. So, you know, if you want like a hardware phrase trainer, Tascam makes them as well. But I just use the software-based ones. Now, as far as the pace of learning material, that's going to be different for everybody. What I find is that, you know, there's been times when I've gotten down 23 or 24 songs within a 48-hour period, literally. For that particular situation, I did have to read charts on still a few of the tunes, but I was almost off of the charts by the end of the 2 days. I found what I have to do to learn all that material is really sit down and internalize a song or two or maybe three at the most, and then I need to take a break. You need to give your brain a break sometimes. If I've got some time, you know, a week or two to learn, you know, 10, 15, 20 songs, what I'll try and do is learn 3 a day. So sit down, learn one, get the gist of it, get the basics, most of the guitar parts, maybe come up with a composite guitar part if I'm going to be the only guitar player on the gig. Once I've learned a song, then I'll take a break for a few minutes, maybe 5, 10 minutes, just give, you know, my brain a break. Then come back, put on the next song. And once again, I'll sort of dive in and listen to just small segments of the music. You know, learning the intro, then the first verse, then the chorus, and just listening to a couple bars at a time, making sure I've really got it. And I tend to take songs in chunks. You know, I'll learn the intro and the first verse, and then I'll go back and go over that, go back and go over that, and try and nail that. Then I'll move on to the chorus. At that point, I'll go back and review. Intro, first verse, chorus. Once you've gotten through that much, I mean, more than likely you've got a bridge, you know, maybe an outro chorus, but you've kind of got the body of the tune at that point. Sometimes in a notebook I'll make little notes. You know, if there's like a breakdown or something like that, or a dropout, something that I need to remember. There's nothing wrong with taking notes and even writing yourself little charts. Once again, I don't want to read charts on the gig or when I'm at an audition or something like that, but at least while I'm learning the stuff, I can have a page in a notebook to reference back to look at, just kind of remind me of some key things while I'm still learning the material. Also, things like tunings, of course. If the song's in an alternate tuning or you need to use a capo on the 3rd fret, things like that. You know, you can take little notes just to help remind yourself for a day or two while you're still learning the material. So, once I've learned a song, maybe 2 songs, take another break. You know, it's good. 5-minute breaks are great for your brain. Then come back, get a 3rd one down. Now, usually that kind of takes me a few hours at least to learn, you know, 2 songs, 3 songs, 4 songs, something like that. 4 at the most. Then if at all possible, I like to stop for that day. If I've got the luxury of some time, I'll stop. Now, the next morning when I come back and I sit down to learn some more songs, what I like to do first is review what I learned the day before. Just quickly go over it, because what I find is often I've forgotten most of what I learned the day before. But it tends to come back quite quick when I just listen to the material a little bit, play through it one song at a time, like, oh yeah, now I remember. So it's a funny thing. The first day for me of learning material, I can learn 3 songs and kind of feel like I've got it 80 or 85% of the way there. And when I come back to it on day 2, I kind of can't remember anything. How did the intro of that song go? But once I listen to it and play through it again and just kind of remind myself, then it's kind of in there. So I might spend like an hour or something on the second day just reviewing the 3 songs, or maybe at most the 4 songs that I learned the day before. Then I'll move on to another 3 the next day. And what I like to do is do this, is say I'm going to learn like 20 songs or something. You know, if I can get down 12 or 15 songs within the first 3 or 4 days, then on day 5, what I like to do is not learn any more new material. Then I just like to use that day to review everything. So at this point, this is where I start using iTunes. I'll put everything in an iTunes playlist, you know, the say 10 to 15 tunes I've learned over the course of that week, and I'll just line them up from 1 through 10 or 15, and I'll just hit play and start playing through the tunes. And it becomes quickly apparent if I've forgotten anything or I need to review anything, go over, you know, some sections that I'm not sure about. Now, if at all possible, if you can take a day off after that 5th day of learning, do that. Give your brain a time, you know, to do the work of internalizing and implanting memories. So that would be like day 6, something like that. Day 7, come back, maybe review one more time those 10 or 15 tunes you've learned. Then it's time to dive in and start learning another 3. So this is kind of the process I went through learning songs for Melissa Etheridge, also for Tsuyoshi Nagabuchi, and for Chris Cornell. I remember we were in kind of a time crunch then where we were starting tour in 3 weeks from the time we got the gig. So every night we would learn 3 new songs. We would go in the next day and actually rehearse those songs. So that was an intense rehearsal period. Every night we'd get 3 new songs in the email, and you know, at 6, 7, 8 p.m. I would start learning those 3 tunes. I would go over them and get them as best I could that night. Maybe when I woke up in the morning I would review those 3 and then head in and start rehearsal at around, you know, 11 or noon each day, I think. And we'd rehearse for 5, 6 hours, go home, learn 3 more at home that night. That process went on for about 3 weeks, and by the time we started tour, I think we had close to 40 songs. But the whole trick of it is, you know, not to try and internalize too much at once. I mean, it's going to be a tough thing to sit down and learn 10, 20 songs in one sitting. Sometimes you need to do that, but if you can, just pace yourself. Know what your pace is. Know how much you can learn at any one given sitting, and then try and stick to that. You know, if it's 2 songs, if it's 3 songs, schedule it out over the course of a week or 2 so that you've got enough time to learn that material that you need to get ready for that big audition or that big gig or the tour. And once again, using phrase trainers to get into the nitty-gritty details of kind of looping sections, really honing in on fast phrases and things. You can use the slow down feature to learn those, and learning the songs with the phrase trainer, that's a great thing. And then as sort of an overall listening experience and to play through all the songs, use something like iTunes, put them all in a playlist, and then just hit play at the top and just play through them. But I only, once again, use iTunes once I've basically got all the parts and the riffs and everything in a song already internalized. Now, I haven't even brought up YouTube. YouTube's a thing that is a fantastic resource, of course. It's kind of a new thing that I feel like, you know, the last 10 years or so has changed the way that people learn instruments, let alone learn songs. And it's a fantastic resource, but you gotta find the good stuff on YouTube. I would recommend, you know, if you're gonna learn a song and use a YouTube video as a resource, well, number one thing that you can do is try and find a live version of that song that you're gonna be playing by the original artist. So in doing that, you can look at, you know, the finger positions on the neck. You can also kind of internalize maybe if they play the song differently live. Even if you're joining a cover band, try and find a video of that cover band playing the song that you're going to learn by them so that you can see the way that they play it. You can kind of internalize the way that they've played it in the past and, learn about, if they maybe play it in a different key or if the endings are different. So YouTube can be a great resource for that sort of thing. Now, if what you're looking for on YouTube is a lesson of how to play a song, what I would recommend doing is looking for the lessons that have the most views and the least amount of dislikes and lots of positive comments. That sort of goes without saying, but there's just a lot of sort of junk out there on YouTube and a lot of stuff that can steer you down the wrong path. So you want to do a little bit of research, find the best lesson you can possibly find on YouTube. That's a good thing. There's some names that you can trust out there, like Justin Guitar and Marty O'Brien, these folks that teach songs really well. Those guys have already gone and done a lot of the homework for you, and that's just, I can't overstate, such a fantastic resource. If you can learn some material from lessons like that you're going to be performing, that's really beneficial. And once again, playlists are helpful. Maybe you want to make a YouTube playlist of some of the lessons of the songs that you find on YouTube that you're going to be performing. Now, of course, if it's a new artist that you're going to be playing with, or an original artist, somebody that doesn't have any stuff on YouTube, this is all, irrelevant. But I found YouTube and Google searches to be really helpful even when I'm learning songs for great big artists. Soundgarden's a band that used a lot of crazy tunings, even to the point where you'd have to change the string gauges on the guitar. So when I was learning songs like Pretty Noose and My Wave, I went online and found the correct tunings for songs like that. And there's some great resources I found just by doing simple Google searches, for Soundgarden tunings and that kind of thing. A lot of people have already gone and done that research and figured out how to play those songs properly. So long story short, we've never had more tools at our disposal for learning music. You've got YouTube, you've got iTunes, you can slow things down using programs like Transcribe or other phrase trainers. These are all fantastic tools, but you're still going to have to develop your ear, and it's still great to get tuned into your personal pace of learning because we're all different. You don't want to overload your brain, and if at all possible, you want to pace out the material that you have to learn and, make yourself a little schedule so that you can acclimate to all that material and internalize it and memorize it at a pace that you're comfortable with. And if you can, try and put it all together into a process, learning the material at the same time that you're getting the right sounds together, and then practicing the material like you're going to be performing or playing it. Standing up with the guitar strap on, or if you play keys and you need to stand up, play drums good and hard and loud, play like you're going to have to be performing the material eventually, if at all possible. So I hope you found some good tips and tricks in this video. I hope it helps you learn the music that you need to learn for whatever it is that you're trying to tackle out there. I wish you all the success in the world, and please come back and see me for more videos in the So You Want to Be a Pro Musician series real soon. Hit the thumbs up on this one if you dug the video. Please share it with all your friends, and please hit subscribe if you haven't. Come back and see me. All right, I'm Pete Thorn. Take care. See ya.